if you're looking up good Irish whiskies, chances are you're going to see these two bottles, Redbreast and Green Spot. And don't get me wrong, they are very good Irish whiskies, but imagine you're a total whiskey beginner, or you're a bourbon or a scotch drinker and you are new to the category of Irish whiskies. Where should you start? Well, this is the video for you. I'm Matt, I'm the Whiskey Nerd, and I'm going to be walking you through 5 great Irish whiskies that are perfect for beginners. They are going to be easy to find, they're going to be full of flavour, and they're going to be easy on the wallet, so you can get to know different Irish whiskies without breaking the bank. So let's get right to it. First up, it's going to be a very familiar green bottle. It's going to be Jameson. It has to be Jameson. This is a good classic example of a nice entry-level Irish whiskey. Is it the best whiskey in the world? No. Is it the best Irish whiskey in the world? No. Is it the best whiskey Jameson make? No. But is it pretending to be any of that? Is it pretending to be the best whiskey in the world, the best Irish whiskey? No. It's just a solid Irish whiskey. It's this classic kind of green bottle. Every liquor store in the world should have it, but it's still a nice whiskey. There's nothing really wrong with Jameson, especially at the price. It has a bit of pot still, which is Ireland's native spirit. It has some grain whiskey. It was aged in bourbon barrels and a bit of sherry cask as well. So you get that sweetness, you get a bit of fruitiness, and you kind of get to know what Irish whiskey is all about. So realistically, if you are getting to know Irish whiskey, if you are just starting off in the category, you could do a lot worse than Jameson. So really, you should kind of start here. Next up, it's going to be a brand that should be familiar to a lot of people, Bushmills, but it's not the regular white label Bushmills. This is the Black Bush Bushmills, and the reason why I've chosen this is because it, like the Jameson, is a blended whiskey, but the Black Bush has a bit more malt to it. The standard edition white label is fine as blends go. It is, I think, not as good as the Jameson, but the Black Bush is definitely a very nice whiskey. It has a bit more malt to it, a bit more sherry aging to it, and just a very good example of Bushmills and what their single malt is capable of, because you do get a very nice malty flavour that comes through in it. It's maybe not as good as the Jameson in cocktails, but it is a very nice sipping whiskey, and if you're going for something it's a little bit more advanced, a little bit maybe better for sipping, the Bushmills Black Bush is a solid contender, and it is also one of the most famous Irish distilleries. Bushmills make very good examples of whiskey, and it's good to get in the door and get to know their style of whiskey. And while Bushmills might be one of the oldest distilleries in Ireland, next up we're going to go to one of the newest distilleries, Teeling. This is their small batch blended whiskey. Again, it's another blended whiskey because a lot of Irish whiskies are going to be blends of malt and grain, and this is no different. This is a blend of malt and grain whiskies aged in bourbon casks, but then finished for about 9 months in rum casks, and that gives it a very different kind of character. It gives it a very much more sweet, tropical kind of note to it. It also comes in at 46% ABV, so it does have a little bit more weight, a little bit more presence in the glass, and is very good for cocktails. Like an old-fashioned with this is very, very tasty, so it's definitely, if you're looking for something maybe a little bit more versatile, maybe a little bit more upmarket than some of these other whiskies, this is definitely kind of in that range. It should be not too much more expensive than the Jameson or the Black Bush, but just a very nice whiskey. Should also be very easy to find. Teeling make some very nice whiskies. Their pot still whiskey is a very, very tasty pot still whiskey, but this, for entry level, if you want to get to know different kinds of Irish whiskies, especially with different kind of finishes, this one is a solid choice. Next up, I've got a malt whiskey for you, and it is, I think, the best-selling Irish malt whiskey in America because, well, it's a very interesting looking bottle. This is the Sexton Irish single malt whiskey. It does come from the Bushmills distillery, but it's a separate brand, and it's kind of different. It was entirely aged in Oloroso sherry casks, so it gives you this really nice, rich, kind of fruity note, which complements the nature, that caramel sweet nature of the Bushmills malt. It's a solid whiskey. It does have a very distinctive little bottle, a little hard to pour from sometimes, but it's a very nice bottle and does stand out. It's just a very nice, solid single malt Irish whiskey. And if you're maybe used to single malt scotches, or you want to see what Irish single malt whiskies can be, this is one to check out because it's very nice, very tasty, and it's a good malt whiskey. So if you want to try a good Irish malt whiskey, start here. Before I get into the last whiskey on this list, I'm going to have a little bit of a brief honourable mention for this whiskey right here. This is 2 Stacks. It's their Dram in a Can. It's a very nice portable whiskey. It's 100ml. It is the same whiskey as is in their big full-size bottle, but just in a 100ml can. It comes in at 86 proof or 43% ABV, and it is super portable. It's a blend of 5 different Irish whiskies, which gives you a lot of kind of fun, interesting flavors, but the most important part is it's very, very portable and very cheap. So you can actually get this for just a couple of euro or a couple of dollars in most liquor stores, because it's becoming quite popular and it is handy enough for being on the go. And if you want to try out 2 Stacks without getting a full-size bottle, give this one a go. But for now, let's talk about Ireland's native spirit. This is Powers 3 Swallow. It is a pot still Irish whiskey. Pot still whiskey is the style of whiskey that's unique to Ireland. It can only be made in Ireland. It's a mix of malted barley and unmalted barley. So you get a lot of that kind of caramel sweetness than you get with a malt whiskey, but then the unmalted barley has this sweetness, this freshness, and this kind of oily, spicy character that lets it deliver a lot of flavor. This does only come in at 40% ABV, but because of that richness, because of that oiliness, it does have a lot of flavor. If you remember those 2 whiskies I mentioned earlier, Redbreast and Greenspot, they're both single pot still whiskies and they both have a lot of flavor despite coming in at 40%, and that's what this does here. This is Powers 3 Swallow, solid little whiskey. It's not the best pot still whiskey there is on the market. I mean, if you really want to get to know pot still whiskies, I might do a video explaining the kind of different categories of pot still whiskey you can get on the market, but suffice it to say, it's a solid whiskey that isn't going to be too expensive. It is going to be cheaper than the Redbreast and the Greenspot whiskies, and it's just a nice, solid, full flavored pot still Irish whiskey. So if you want to get to know pot still whiskey, start here. So there you have it. That was 5 different Irish whiskies, or maybe it was 6 different Irish whiskies that you should try out if you're a beginner and you want to get to know Irish whiskey. But if you want to take your Irish whiskey knowledge a bit further, I've got a video for you. Next week I'll be putting out a video about 5 different impressive Irish whiskies that might be hard to find or might be high proof, that will impress your friends or your guests if you break out a bottle of it. So make sure you hit subscribe so you'll see that video. But that's it for now. I'll see you next time. Sláinte.